What is up, Rad Potential YouTube, and welcome to today's video on the Radformational video, whatever. Welcome to today's video on the Rad Potential YouTube channel. We are going to talk about this engine that I rebuilt a couple weeks ago, and it's been giving me some fits. So I'm going to go over some things, some mistakes, not really mistakes, but just issues I've had with it and why it's all torn back apart. But first, figured I'd give you the $2 tour of all the cars. Rally car, Bridgeport car, which we're doing a video on the Weber in that. Will's car, which is done, or actually we're redoing the carburetor, just getting it cleaned again. Charles has the carburetor, but exhaust is done. Death Trap's having a fuel pressure issue right now where it's running lean on the top end, so I can free rev it and get zero fuel pressure. Once this one's done, I gotta fix my Jeep, and then I'm starting back on this. I'm gonna get this painted. We still got the Cosmo first shins, the first shin down there. There's two more cars way down there, which you might see on the channel in a little while. And then we got this thing. So, if you've been following along since the very beginning of the channel, you know that I've worked on this car before. I built the engine in it. Like, I was driving it, it overheated and torched coolant seals. So I got it back, pulled the motor back out, rebuilt the motor, put it back in. And it was hard to start. Timing was off. We got it running. Had an oil leak on the front cover. So I'll show you on this engine here that I already have out. So I had an oil leak right back in here. On these front covers, the oil part that feeds this little hole right there above that dial pin, that feeds oil to your oil metering pump. And I think that's where it was leaking. So note that. The other thing, when I pulled it apart, this is the O-ring that goes between the front cover and the front iron for the oil pump. This is your main oil feed for the entire engine, and it goes right here, just so you know. So when I pulled the motor apart, the O-ring that I had in it was pushed out. Like, basically imagine like the edge of this being pushed out this way. So I swapped it with another one, and this one is actually an injector diffuser O-ring. It's the right diameter, but it's a tad bit thicker, and it seemed, well, I mean, I didn't run it, but we'll see how that one works better. But why did we tear the engine down? So when Charles came out this weekend to drop off these two other cars that are down in the front, I had him compression test this motor while it was on the stand. Now, one might say, probably should have compression tested it right when I rebuilt it before I put it in here, but we didn't. We put it in and tried to get it running. So, what do I think the issue was? And as you saw by the title of the video, you'll know what we replaced and didn't replace. So, when this motor overheated, when I rebuilt it the first time, everything was in good condition. It overheated, and I put basically everything back. I put new apex seals in it, put everything back how it was. And so this is your rotor. I'm going to use this as an example. And I think this is a side seal spring. Tips up. Lay that in there. And I think that the side seal springs were affected by the heat and aren't springing up very well. So you can see that's springy, but on the ends it's not very springy. Now there's not a pound meter I could put on here to show you, but it's not as springy as it should be in my opinion. And I think that's what is causing it to be. I wouldn't even say it's low compression. It's low compression for a fresh rebuild. It's not really that low compression. We're sitting like mid 60s and low 70s on all of them, and they're all pretty even, so there's no like outlier or stuck seal or anything, but that's not good. A freshly rebuilt motor should be high 90s, over 100 for sure, you know, especially with its all new stuff all put back together. So the other thing, and just talking to some of the other engine builders around here, a lot of guys don't like to run these solid corner seals. Okay, so I had solid corner seals in that one, and let me grab some regular ones. Okay, right here we should have little rubber guys. There we go, perfect. I'll just bring the whole box over here. So the variation or the difference between a solid corner seal right here and a stock corner seal right here, you can see this has this big hole. Now, what goes in that big hole is one of these little rubber guys. It's a corner seal plug. Okay, so this would go in here like that, and your apex seal touches that. Now, some people have said that the solid corner seals don't provide as good of a seal as an OEM seal. And I don't know if it's a tolerance thing with how they fit. I know that these solid ones, I would say, fit a little loose, meaning like I can kind of wiggle that around in there just a bit and they spin super easy. But if you have a factory one, like it's like you gotta push it down in there, and that thing, I cannot spin that by hand. You know, I've got to have a screwdriver or something to be able to turn it. I.e. like the diameter is a mega tighter on that than it is on this. So learn-ish from my mistakes slash decide on what you wish, but I'm gonna rebuild this engine, put it back together with OEM Mazda corner seals, new side seal springs, because these side seals are already fit, and see what we get. I'm already running FD corner seal springs, and these are new apex seals here. Alright guys, before the time lapse starts, everything's cleaned, prepped, ready to rip, fresh coat of paint on the housings, irons looked fine, all the deals over here, freshly scienced up. Fun fact, if you don't put enough like WD-40 and stuff on your bare metal bits, you get some oxidation. You see the little light brown, a little bit of some rusty rust just from sitting here over one night. But everything's looking sick. It is late and I'm ready for bed. And Charles is coming over tomorrow and we're going to stack this baby up. So let's get to stacking. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and ready for some compression numbers. So, we've got the freshly rebuilt overheated 12A for the second time on the stand, or on the hoist, with the bell housing on it. We're going to jumper this baby over. Oh man, I can't see the... Alright, we got us a fresh battery in the 9-volt. She's working good. So, let's go ahead. Run this starter. This whole motor likes to turn. Huh? What's going on? not registering. Alright guys, we're back. We're at the race car. This is more of a test of like the compression tester. Also, it's good to know the numbers of the race car, why not? Since we're selling it. So let's see if the compression tester's working and see what's up. So basically your compression test procedure is put on trailing plug, no throttle, no brake, no whatever. You're supposed to hold the throttle wide open, but on these old carbureted cars, when you do that, it shoves a bunch of fuel in there, and I don't like the fuel being in there, so idle fuel only. So let's y'all can see that. That's not registering anything. What's up guys? I'm bringing you back to the shop. It's the end of the video, and I wanted to insert some stuff here. I'm going to show you the compression numbers from this engine. I was able to get the sensor to read kind of a couple days later. Basically, like, if you look down in here, imagine you're threading this in, the wires are going to spin and get twisted right there. So I think it's got a broken wire. So we're working out getting a new sensor. But if I held it like a certain way, like all those iPhone guys having to charge their phones after a while, when the charging ports wore out, I got it to work. So the numbers you saw, very good, right? So before we were looking at numbers in the 60s and in the 80s corrected. So that's 60, 65, and then 80, 85 corrected value for RPM. Now you can see we're looking at 80s and 120 corrected-ish, 115, 120. So what that corrected value does, and what it is it takes into account like your RPM, because if you imagine a slower turning motor is going to generate less compressive force. So with the faster turning motors, it doesn't have to add as much compression. There's a chart, comes with your compression tester when you buy it for this one. Now the Mazda one's a little more fancy, but these are nice, great budget compression tester. They work awesome. Ours has obviously seen a ton of use, so it doesn't make sense that the sensor's busted, but no worries. So what does that mean? Well, what that means for this engine is that we're putting OEM corner seals in the engine, and then basically all I did was refit side seals to make them fit tight, and I replaced the side seal springs while I was in there, but there was no noticeable pressure difference, just me testing the old ones versus the new ones, still felt about the same. So basically what this means is that those solid corner seals that I had in there basically dropped that compression 30 psi, and that probably accompanied with a little bit of the help from the new side seal springs bumped that up, you know, over 100 psi for that 12A. Keep in mind the Apex seals only had the runtime that it ran for, you know, 3 minutes before I found the oil leak. The side seals are ones that we have in like a stash of good ones, and we always fit them to the corners. So you just have a big stack of them, you go through, you find all the tightest ones that fit within spec, and you run those instead of like clearancing new ones. So there's probably something to be gained there if you self-fit or self-clearance, go through and actually clearance the side seals like brand new to spec. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty wild change for really only switching the corner seals to those solid, or from solid to the OEM Mazda ones with the little rubber inserts. Because I would consider that really the biggest change, because some of the side seals were the same as before. Like I said, the side seal springs were still fine. Just put new ones in just to be sure. But yeah. So that's pretty wild. So what am I got going on in the next video? The next video, we're putting this in the car. It's going to be running. I'm going to have the exhaust done. Getting that stuff done this week. I'm tired of seeing this thing sit here. It's been kind of a process to get it all put back together. Just with everything else going on. As you can see, there's still been tons of content, even though I haven't been working on this a bunch. And been piddling with Weber stuff and doing whatever. But for those who stay tuned for the whole video, thank you very much. If you want to see some more stuff or follow along with the builds, give it a subscribe. And we will see you next time. Keep it rad.